Everyone, I'm Bill Hannafin, the managing editor of The Wise Marketer, and I'm here with Emily Rudin, Vice President, Loyalty Product Strategy and Growth with Oracle Crowdtwist. Emily, how are you?
Great. How are you today?
Good, really good. So what's special about CRMC for you that, you're making a pretty good investment to be here? I assume, are you coming to Dallas next year?
Absolutely. I mean, sad for our last year in Chicago, but thrilled to be here.
Right.
CRMC is a really special show. It's intimate. There are a lot of wonderful brands, a lot of wonderful technology and service partners who are here to really help brands move forward.
Yeah.
A lot of innovation and a lot of different thinking, forward thinking.
We're right in the thick of it now, aren't we?
Absolutely. And the best show of the year.
Yeah. I felt that way this year. So we've known each other for a long time. And, you've had a career in retail marketing and now customer loyalty. Can you just sort of summarize that, just so people know exactly who you are? And
Absolutely.
A little bit of background.
Absolutely. So when I graduated from Syracuse University in a day gone by, I followed my life mission into retail. I went through the executive training program with Macy's. I was there for many years and really focused on strategic initiatives. My passion has always been helping a brand connect back to a consumer. I worked for brands like Macy's, Coach, Anning for many years when I ultimately departed from the business and went to dunnhumby to really focus on customer behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we learn from the behaviors of consumers and how does that translate into long-term growth over time?
Okay.
Which really ignited my passion about really helping brands connect with customers in deeper ways. From there, I went to the Children's Place to lead the marketing team, but quickly found myself at Crowdtwist as I was looking for a solution to help fill the needs that brands face every day.
Interesting. So I just have to tell you, dunnhumby, you passed through some doors of true innovation, because once upon a time I was in a room and heard Clive Humby present and just talk about the origins of the company, and just they set the tone, I think, and inspired a lot of what we're doing today, even today.
Absolutely. And if you think about the evolution of loyalty, I mean, that's where loyalty started. When we track loyalty back over the last 100 years, right, we start with box tops and the ability for a consumer to connect back to their local community through this little cardboard piece that they cut out and redeem across the ecosystem that still exists today, only in a digital form,
right,
to really what we learned from the grocery store market or from the airlines, travel, hospitality, and the fingerprints of all of these industries that dunnhumby and those of its like have really helped to define.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you have a comprehensive title. That's how I would frame it. Loyalty, product, strategy, growth. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
What's a day in the life like for you? Where are you focusing your energy and your time?
Well, I focus my energy and time really across the board. Innovation, product strategy, where are we today? Where do we need to be tomorrow? How do we think about that across all of the consumer industries, understanding the nuances and the perspective of each? I also spend a lot of time with our marketing teams, our sales teams, and our account teams, influencing relationships that we have with our customers and our prospects to really make sure that we're positioned to be successful in helping them achieve their goals today, tomorrow, and beyond.
Okay, so you're spending a lot of customer-facing time?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. That's good. That probably keeps you energized, and because you not only know what you're bringing from what you've built at Oracle, but you get the ideas from the teams and the reactions of people that you're working with.
Absolutely. And, one of the benefits that I've had since working with Crowdtwist is really being able to touch so many different industries, right? We don't just power food and beverage programs or sports and entertainment. We're in retail, we're in media, we're in healthcare, and really being able to look at those ecosystems, see what it is, and understand that they all have consumers. Every retailer is actually a media company today. Every media company is actually a retailer today. And figuring out how to solve those challenges and problems and opportunities across really unique customer bases.
Yeah, interesting. So part of your work, I guess, you've been prolific in creating content. I know you've got several ebooks that have been published. And what would you want to highlight from those? Because there's a lot there, but what would you highlight for this audience at CRMC that they should know?
Loyalty, while we have evolved tremendously over the years, also has remained pretty consistent. It's about connecting back to customers. Now, what's changed is the values of those customers. So being personalized, relevant, contextual, simple, and easy to execute really lends itself to the most successful programs and the most successful customer relationships.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get back and we'll talk about the individual ebooks and some of the topics in a little bit. But the topic that's going around that I've been hearing a lot about is, I guess, mostly in retail, but, people still relying on discounts and promotions, kind of traditional approaches. And how would you advise a retailer that might want to move from that sort of model into more of an engagement focus? strategy.
Absolutely. We talk to partners all the time. Retailers, food and beverage brands, sports and entertainment brands, all are looking to do the same thing, right? When we think about the evolution of that loyalty journey over time, at some points, very early on, it became about offers and discounts. And as we know, particularly for retailers, that's a hard drug to walk away from, right? Coming in a Monday, seeing how sales were over the weekend, we're not going to be 25% off, we're going to be 30% off. Friends and family, when it was just for friends and family, is now 40% off to anyone who walks down the mall that day and sees the easel. And really taking a moment to reset how we think about our customers, how we think about our relationships. When Crowdtwist started about a decade ago, a little bit more, we were a disruptor in the space.
Yeah.
We, walked into a place where loyalty was a service-based industry, where programs didn't evolve and change daily and fluidly. They were built and they were foundational and they stayed and they stood the test of time as to who they were. What we've learned today is that customers don't do that anymore. And we still have customers who are so interested in offers and discounts, and that's why they join loyalty programs, but many don't. We used to look across the industry at a category that we would call non-redeemers, and they frustrated marketers. Why do these people not redeem? They could have a free, they could do and they just didn't, because that wasn't their value system. That wasn't why they were there. It wasn't what they did. And now as you look at programs, really saying, what do customers want? What do different segments of customers want? And creating programs that are compelling for them, deliver the same value, if not a lot more, than heavy discounted promotions do. So really finding that right place with the customers you want to connect to and making sure that you're relevant for them, not just on the earn side, but on the burn side too.
And that's part of the journey. I think this business is discovering value in pockets of the customer base that maybe you didn't anticipate. And that, we have the Loyalty Academy, we have courseware that we had created, and there's an element of it that we call the OG perspective. And so in the OG perspective, people used to say, oh, those that don't redeem, those customers you're talking about, just don't invest further. Let them go. Let's not talk to them anymore. But that would be a mistake, don't you think? There's so much value to be had. It's just a matter of how do you engage them in the proper way to have them come to life.
Absolutely. And it really comes down to KPIs, right? If you view redemption as the strongest KPI, then you ignore those people.
Yeah.
But if you look at engagement, activity, the interaction that customer has with the brand, many brands find that it's some of their most important customers actually sit in the category.
Yeah.
And some of the benefits that they give them aren't really what they want. Right? When I think about myself as a consumer, my favorite retailer, the tentpole to their program, right, and to their offer ecosystem is I get 20%, maybe it's 25 now, on the month of my birthday. Well, in women's apparel, there's nothing full price to buy in August, and that's when my birthday is. So I've never once taken advantage of that because it's a full price offer. There's nothing I want that's full price in August, September, different story. So I'm a non-redeemer to them. But yet that's my favorite brand. That's where my wallet share goes. That's who I tell all my friends about and champion and influence for. So really looking at the KPIs of what's important changes that OG conversation, because in the OG ecosystem, redemption and transactions against offers was the most important, but it's not today in most cases for most customers.
That's so interesting. So one of the ways to move people along in these journeys is gamification. Sort of a hot topic today. A lot of people are talking about it, but I get the sense that people are not really understanding the potential of gamification. They're still focused on badges and leaderboards and not understanding the full potential, but you have a perspective on that you can share?
Absolutely. So we look at gamification as any non-spend activity.
Okay.
Any way we can incentivize a consumer, excite a consumer, motivate a consumer to interact with a brand. Now that could be a spin to win. That could be a leaderboard. That could be any of those, really gamified experiences, or it could just be encouraging a referral. It could just be asking for a recommendation, right? When you know that someone just had a really positive experience and putting them on that natural track that doesn't necessarily require spend. That being said, I've seen a lot of trends come and go in loyalty. Some I've understood, some I haven't. On the redemption side, the sweepstakes was always one that was interesting to me. We've seen millions of people burn billions of points entering a sweepstakes. I grew up in the Publishers Clearinghouse generation. Nobody ever showed up at my door with that check or those balloons. I'm not interested in participating in that, but so many are.
Yeah.
Right now, we are in a badges moment like no other. And it's really interesting as we've gone back and looked at our capabilities, what do you need to do? And then how do you evolve badging to be what it should be in 2025? How do we use AI to be predictive about badges, put people on the right badge tracks that are right for them, encourage those behaviors, and then celebrate them, right? Whether it's publicly, whether it's privately, whether we're encouraging those customers to do it. Really thinking about what that evolution looks like is really important, particularly for leading brands.
Very interesting. So you work across diverse segments, and I think that's where some of the ebook material is. You've talked about food and beverage, about sports and entertainment, retail, general retail, but can you highlight, or are there some highlights that you want to share from any or all of those books?
Yeah, look, I think that all of our ebook content is really meant to be thought starters and thinking about the challenges that brands face a little bit differently, understanding where the simple solutions are and what's more complex.
Okay.
We've known for a long time that data is a problem for brands. It's disorganized. It's not actually correct. They don't trust it. They don't know how to access it. They're confused by it, right? And as we help brands and brands figure out how to solve those problems, opportunities create. And when you think about all of those industries like sports and entertainment, restaurants, retail, these are all industries that have been significantly disrupted over the last 10 years.
Right.
Whether it was a disruption that was happening, and certainly at retail it was with, buy online, pick up in store or multi-channel fulfillment. And then the pandemic catapulting those behaviors of adoption.
Right.
It's created unique challenges, right?
Right.
I know now that I could go to my favorite website, my favorite store, I can purchase something and it will come to me faster than it will be convenient for me to get to the mall.
Right.
I also know that they're going to ship it and find my size wherever, and that store near me might not have that, from wherever they can find it in their ecosystem.
Right.
And I also know that 50% of the time when they ship that order from one of their stores, the security sensor is going to be on.
Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the biggest frustrations for customers, right?
Yeah.
And creates a point in friction in that transaction that was otherwise seamless. But what we encourage brands to think about is what is friction and what is opportunity. Seamless experiences create a space where brands don't interact with some of the most important people in the brand ecosystem.
Right.
The store associates.
Right.
The lease line at the store. So how do we find these opportunities to make sure that brands can celebrate even mistakes that are frustrating, right? And create those emotional connections and offer programs that are relevant, personalized, and simple, because that's important.
I love that. And that meshes with something that we wrote about on Wise Marketer, was a point of view that somebody had who said you should have managed friction in a program. It was something along those lines because, probably 3 years ago, people were talking about, we want to have a frictionless program. We want to have, take all the friction out. But I think what I hear you saying is that, no, you need to have some conscious element of let's have some interaction, let's have some friction, because that's how you get reaction and emotion out of your customer.
Yeah, I think for a long time, and if you talk about retailers specifically, offers and discounts were the way to a customer's heart. Right.
Right.
The one-day sale that's 5 days long.
Right.
Right. We all know that, right?
Yes.
And that was that relationship.
Right.
I was getting a discount. I felt good. But now I can get that discount everywhere, anywhere. And someone can always get it to me faster.
Right.
Right. So how do we build emotional relationships with consumers so that they make that choice and they choose to come to us, to purchase from us, to evangelize for us and bring their friends who will become best customers. That's through relationships. And, while I have a dependency on an online retailer who brings a box to my house every single day, I don't know them.
Right.
I don't like them. I kind of need them. But there are, small businesses or other brands that I love going into that store, having that experience, and I feel connected to in a deeper way.
Okay. Let's talk about channels for a minute.
Yeah.
Because, probably I'll say when I started, probably not when you started, but there was some white mail, there was email, and then gosh, all of a sudden there were SMS. And to me, it's only been recently adopted and more so in maybe QSR and convenience, certain channels, brands not afraid to use the SMS channel and texting people. But even WhatsApp now is becoming potentially a big channel, but all the social channels. But is there a prioritization, a ranking? What's your perspective on all the options that a retailer has available to them to talk to their customers?
So it 100% depends on the brand and their consumers.
Okay.
For some brands, there is nothing more special than some physical piece of mail in the mailbox. That is the best way to get to a customer, to reach that customer, to get their mind share.
Yeah.
For some of the brands with younger audiences, some of the more social, digital channels are more relevant. But it's also about preferences of consumers. And even if you are a young brand who has a strong social platform ecosystem, right? That's not always just the best way to connect with all of your consumers. Hearing from customers about how they want to be spoken to, the channels they want to be engaged with, is really important. And then having the technology available to you to deliver those messages to those consumers in the ways they want to receive it is incredibly important, right? We've all seen what happens to email. We all have multiple email addresses. Right? When I go into a store and someone asks me for my phone number, I stop and I think in my head, do I like the store enough to give them my cell phone number? And then I blurt out the home phone number only to really discover that I, in fact, did like them that much to give them my cell phone number. And we all feel that way about the retailers and the brands that we interact with. So really important not just to say, hey, WhatsApp is where we're going or SMS is the channel, even though there's a lot of success there. It really depends on the individual customers and the relationships that they have with those channels and their brand.
Different types of businesses, different type of customers, the need for immediacy. That might mean in some places SMS is perfectly okay, but in it for another type of retailer, it might be somewhat inappropriate, right? Invasive.
Yeah, I mean, and my husband and I love the same athletic brand. They text him all of the time.
Okay.
I get a text from them, I hate it, right? And we all have that relationship that's different, right? I expect you to be in my email. I don't want you on my, but he doesn't want to go into his email. He wants to be on his phone, and really being able to understand that about consumers, that's a change. That's what technology has enabled, right? The expectation and the ability to deliver against that expectation of how brands should be communicating with consumers.
So that leads me to the topic of AI. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the role of AI, and I'd just like to get your opinion about how you think it's going to impact our business, because you're talking about data and the need to really hone in on that data to create the nuances that you need to understand your customers.
Absolutely. I think that if you look back at programs over time, you'll see that a lot of players in the space have leveraged AI, us included, in different components of the program, largely historically around fraud. We wanted to find bad actors. We wanted to find lookalike bad actors before they became bad actors. Watch their activity to be able to kind of immobilize them quickly. And we've really honed in and refined our capabilities around that. But as we look forward, the role of AI is very different. It's more proactive, less reactive, right? That's proactive to something that's reactive. I'm still responding to bad behaviors when I'm focusing AI on fraud. But as we think about finding new customers, creating and cultivating those customer journeys, changing, evolving, testing, and the ability to do that, not just in A/B testing, right, like we would have a few years ago, but really dynamically being able to evolve across those capabilities. That's where we're going to see AI make that difference. We're going to see AI not recreate the customer experience, but enhance it. And brands who are successful in doing that will be the ones who are leveraging AI as quickly as possible. But as I caveat to all of our brand partners, AI requires data, right? That data foundation is more important than it's ever been to make sure that models are predictive, they're capable, but they have a foundational knowledge base that makes those right decisions.
I heard somebody this morning in one of the presentations say they needed to hydrate their models with data, and I thought that's a pretty good metaphor, right?
Absolutely.
The body needs hydration to work, and the models need that data hydration.
Absolutely. And when Crowdtwist started, it was about connecting with customers, right? Beyond spend. I mean, one of our first accounts was Kelly Clarkson, right? And her mission was to get her biggest fans in the front row of her performances, not ticket brokers, right? When you looked at spend behaviors, that's who she was seeing. And really what that comes down to, and that unique problem of a decade ago, right, still exists. It's the data gap. If we don't know who's a real fan, if we don't have opportunities to collect that data, which is why we believe engagement is so important, it really helps us hydrate those models, build that full picture, and help us find audiences that are really important that otherwise may have been overlooked.
That makes sense. All right, we're going to have you come back sometime and talk about the Kelly Clarkson story. That sounds really interesting right there. There's probably a whole tale to go along with that, but it's brilliant. So everything we've talked about, there's, the more we engineer these programs and the more we put in there, whether it's gamification or channels and data and all these things, it can create a heaviness, a complexity to the programs. I'm wondering like what your perspective is on how do you strike the right balance between something that's sophisticated yet simple and easy to understand for a customer?
Absolutely. So, this is really the role of technology, right? Technology is the great enabler that enables programs to be complex, to be heavy, to be thoughtful, always deliver one experience to a customer, which is simple. We've seen time and time again, if programs aren't simple, if they're not something we can resonate with in a moment or understand as we're walking by, they're not going to last. Right? They just don't. So the end experience for the customer always needs to be simple. It needs to be right. It needs to not be do these 100 things, right? No, do the one you're going to do. What are you most likely to do? Yeah, let's have you do that, right? Oh, you just filled out, a shopper survey and said you had a horrible experience. Now's not the time for me to recommend your friends, right? Using those cues, context, data points that we have to put you on the right journey for where you are, to mend relationships, to encourage advocacy, wherever that customer is. But at the end of the day, it's got to be simple for the customer.
Yeah.
It's got to look and feel easy, even though these programs are quite complex behind the scenes.
Right. Makes sense. So let me ask you, so as we wrap this up, if somebody said, hey, if Devin came in here right now and said, Emily, you've got a minute on the stage, just come and share the burning thought that's on your mind. Like what's on your mind you think that everybody in this event needs to be thinking about this year?
I think the idea of personalization really important and becoming more important than ever. And not personalization in the way that I get an email that says, hi, Emily, right? Or happy birthday, Emily. We used to call that personalization. We used to say, if you were a children's apparel retailer and I've only ever purchased for girls, not to send me pictures and ads with boys, right? But that's actually not personalization. That's just being pretty obvious. If brands want to connect with customers on a deeper level, if they want to transcend the ecosystem to form communities, to build emotional bonds and relationships that will deliver for them over time, they really have to get personal. They have to build those relationships, investing and building in them, and then treat them respectfully by how that communication looks. So I think the evolution of how we think about personalization is probably the most important thing for brands to think about in creating those opportunities to have planned friction, to connect, to be relevant and personal with customers, because that's going to be important go forward.
Emily Rudin, thanks so much. Oracle Crowdtwist. Glad to have you here. Really appreciate your time again, and hope we can do this again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.